it's actually happened within recent weeks where Liv are trying to find a new CEO. So Greg Norman currently fulfills that role. The PIF, which kind of backs Liv, who's it? They've basically give it to a employment company.
Right. What to do They've got a recruitment company.
The recruitment company, yeah.
There's recruitment for everything, isn't it?
I don't understand like the whole recruitment business, so you could leave me out of this. But they're searching for a new CEO.
I'll explain the recruitment business to you. It's an entity that people who want to go live in London go and get a recruitment job, do it for 6 months, and then realise this isn't that good, and then leave. That's what the recruitment business is.
It always surprises me like how many people work in recruitment.
It's very good. It's so accurate.
The amount of jobs.
I'm also sorry if anyone works in recruitment and actually love their job, but that is kind of the
is it one of those like self-fulfilling things? So like, do you get recruited for a recruitment job?
Wow.
You actually kind of do in a weird way, because I remember when I was looking for jobs down in London and I was going for journalistic roles, videography roles, and somehow through the webs of like going through LinkedIn things, I was getting emails and calls from recruitment companies recruiting me to work in recruitment. Anyway, so Greg Norman.
Someone's going to get a percentage of the new CEO signing.
I'll tell you what, that's a good one to do, isn't it?
Yeah, because that's how recruitment...
Get a little bit of commission on that.
That's how they make their money. Yeah, if you stay in the role for a certain amount of time, they get a cut of...
Yeah.
They get like a percentage of your salary.
That'll be a good little contract to sort out that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would, wouldn't it?
I feel like this has been like bubbling for a while though. I feel like Greg Norman getting pushed out the door has kind of been one of those things that's been rumoured for even over like a year.
I think from the outset, because he's a pretty divisive figure in many ways, and when Liv was kicking off, it was very abrasive, kind of what he was saying. It was kind of like, I want this. He's always wanted a world tour.
Yeah.
Even when he was playing, it was something he was advocating for. Obviously, Australian, he maybe has a little bit more of a world outlook on professional golf, whereas like the PGA Tour, obviously very US centric. So that's something that Norman has wanted for a long time. But the way he went about it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because it was, we're here, we're the best, everyone else can go away.
Yeah. Do you think though, and maybe this is over time, because I didn't like it at the time, but now looking back, do you feel that actually Liv needed that?
I think they kind of did.
You needed someone to just kind of be a little bit in your face, a little bit sort of, and because it did sort of contrive some little bit of anger in people and some opinions of hate towards Liv.
It painted them as this kind of like bad boy,
but it did
alternative.
Stir them up a little bit. But it also did create this versus, narrative that we now have between the two tours, which hopefully maybe that him getting sort of pushed out the door is kind of another stepping stone to...
Yeah, do we think that this is the final step? Do we think that this is the last kind of hurdle in the way of Liv and the PGA coming back to golf unifying again?
Yeah.
So they need to get rid of the figure that caused the controversy in order to unify the tours, bring the world of golf back together, make everyone happy.
I think there's three main points. So you've got Greg Norman, who has really annoyed a lot of people. Realistically, he can't continue in a role where he has a direct say in what is happening week to week tour-wise. There's too many kind of egos been bruised, and there's too many bridges been burned in this particular situation. You could argue it's the same thing with Jay Monahan.
Yeah.
I personally don't believe that. I think he's just going to stay in exactly the same position. And then the third sticking point is going to be regulatory from like the US government allowing this merger.
Yeah.
But we have seen in countless occasions over the years, when there's this much money involved, the deal gets done.
Yeah, they find a way to make it happen.
Exactly. So for me, this was a personal hurdle for a lot of people. And if a new CEO comes in who's a unifier rather than a divider, then I don't really see how there's anything which is eventually going to stop this. And what that format looks like, if it's the current team format that Liv has, If it's some kind of split year where you have normal tour events, normal 72-hole events, and then you have a team aspect, I don't know. But for me, this is one of the final little kind of twist in the saga.
So, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, do you think it was Rory's stipulation that he would get the players behind the unified tour if they ousted Greg from the deal?
Maybe. I mean, maybe.
Listen, the players all listen to me and to Tiger, and we'll tell them what to vote for, and we'll tell them to he's the
Were you being Rory then? By the way,
he's Frank Underwood. Yeah, I always I always take the role of Rory wherever I go. Yeah. He's like whipping up the players, and they've all said, yeah, we'll agree to it and we'll do it. You got to get rid of Greg Norman because none of us like him, and he was horrible to all of us.
So we're saying that you feel like
mean.
You're saying that this feels like this is the step that was required for now this merger to go ahead. So obviously, I mean, this whole time it's just pure speculation. Do you feel then that this is a sign that something is close to happening?
Yeah, it's just it's another little barrier. It's like another little domino.
Yeah, they've got
which has fallen. Obviously, the biggest thing is getting a structure in place and agreeing and making it lawful. Yeah, certainly in the US's eyes. I think as far as Liv goes and how that operates throughout the world, Liv could absorb the PGA Tour now because of the way it operates.
Sure.
So that is a interesting way to look at it. We always think, it might be PGA Tour and Liv coming together to form one entity, when realistically, the PGA Tour, and this won't happen, but the PGA Tour could effectively say, okay, we're not going to be PGA Tour, we're just going to join.
Yeah. And
we're gonna have a completely separate thing going forward.
Yeah,
which obviously won't happen, but that's a possibility on the outreaches of credulity.
Okay, so say it all goes through, the deal, a deal happens, everything joins back up again. The Liv team want some sort of team golf element. The PGA Tour want to continue the 72-hole, traditional stroke play tournament. What does your perfect format look like over the course of the calendar year? And does something like TGL factor in at any point? Where does the Ryder Cup sit if team golf is already like? What does your perfect format look like? Because we love 72 holes.
Yeah.
Do we hate 72 holes? 54 feels not enough. Like, talk us through what you feel. If it came together, what do you think it should look like?
The first thing you have to do is get the best players together. You have to. I think the world has moved on from having just US events. I think it does have to go a little bit more global. We've seen this with the strategic partnership with PGA Tour, DP World Tour, which hasn't really come to fruition. Like, we got the Scottish Open, that's basically it. So there needs to be a closer operation between all the tours to make sure we have more global events. I don't mind a more constricted time frame, which has been happening recently. Like, we see the fall events on the PGA Tour not really getting any interest from viewerships. I think Golf Channel viewership on the event in Utah last week for a Sunday was 115,000.
Which, by the way, that course looked awesome.
Yeah, Utah is
it looks incredible.
Is one of those places we're definitely going to go to. So that kind of format, as far as events where people aren't invested, they're not going to survive. They're not going to work. But for me, the traditional events of the national opens, the Spanish Open, Italian Open, the Texas Open, I know it's not international, but that's a big historic event, for example. Things like Bay Hill, Sawgrass. We have structured events. People know, people enjoy, where all the best players come together. That needs to come back. That needs to happen. For me, the team aspect, it doesn't do a lot for me in the current format that Liv have got it. It just feels too contrived.
Okay. I agree.
I could get on board with it if I invest in more time, but there's something about me that I don't really believe that, Bryson is that invested in
being a crusher.
I don't think it's part of his identity.
But I think, those things happen over time. Liv is still so young, and the format that they have created it's so early in its life that, we've talked about you have there about, the heritage of these older events, giving them meaning, and their format for Liv and the teams. The reason that we're maybe the reason that we're not so invested in them is just because they haven't been around long enough. Like when teams, people get at us in the comments for making football, comparisons, but like if a new team joined the Football League, it would take years and years and years for them to have any sort of history and heritage that people could connect to. I think the way TGL have done it is interesting because they have picked like cities, and then you can, in effect, support your city. I think the thing with Liv is that
if you're from America,
there needs to be a European or an English team or something. That would be cool. But the thing with Liv teams is that like, what do I connect to apart from the people in it?
Yeah,
and the people in it are arbitrary. They're like put together because
and also seemingly can move quite easily.
So what can I connect to? Because it's not as if Crushers are like, oh, all the Crushers players went to this university, and then all of the fans who like that university can support that team because that's its kind of identity. They don't really have that yet.
You're right. The connection is to the player that you like to watch, and then
which is individual.
And then if that player then leaves or moves to another team in the transfer market or whatever it might be, then do you stick to the team that you were? But the reason why I joined that team anyway, or supported that team, was because he was there. But now he's gone to Majestics or wherever it might be.
Am I an Arsenal fan or am I a Cesc Fabregas fan?
I think of it as in a way as well, because you talk, in the same way that how me and Pete both support American football teams, and how the PGA or TGL, have created their teams based on American sides. Now we, as you would speak to any kind of NFL fan from this country, obviously don't necessarily have anything to stick onto. Why have you picked that team? And it might be a silly story.
because our boss did a random team generator.
But it's that kind of thing. Yeah. It's I turned on Madden for the first time and randomized it and got someone. Yeah. It's, for me, it's David Beckham was my favorite player growing up, and then the Giants drafted Odell Beckham Jr. Right, and I just went Beckham. Yeah. That's great.
I like the logo.
Yeah, exactly. It's just those kind of things, and then you can kind of stick.
They play in black.
Yes, and to come back to my point of saying how people move. Well, Odell got traded, and I hated that because I was like, well, he's the reason why I kind of started. But you do build but it is more than that, because it isn't down to, it is more of a team thing, and it isn't down to just individual people playing. Yeah. And you say about, they need to bring a European team in, but then again, I think of that as if all these NFL fans that have been brought up and built over on here, I think if you ask a lot of them now, because there's always been rumours of them saying there's going to be a London team that's going to be created. I think it's so far gone now for them that I don't even think that would necessarily do very well, because all these people have built this connection with what's going on in America. And I think because of that fact, that because it is now American based, or now what we're hoping will be more worldly based, but if they do kind of do this team element and stick it to places in America, it just sort of alienates a lot of the golfing world who are watching across the pond that have to try and... So that's why the team element for me is a struggle, because it kind of creates something in America that maybe you could get behind. But here, it's harder to kind of engage with what's going on unless you do create these almost even worldly teams.
Yeah, you would have to have London GC, and they would be all players who grew up in London. Or if you came from London, you would support London GC because that's your local international golf league.
How do you work out which of the... Because, there are so many golfers out there. How do you decide which ones get in the teams, which one don't? Is it the top 50 at the end of the year, then you divvy it up? Is it like...
Anything which involves a team, sports team, it's only going to be engaging, and it's only going to be interesting if there is a fan base behind it. Because... that's one of the best things about supporting a team. Yeah. You can get behind it, you can feel personally invested, but it's the fact that there's other people out there who feel the same way.
Yes, yeah.
If it's always been the case, the fans are behind any team. They're the most important part of the team, you could argue. And like I said, Liv's only been around for a very short amount of time, but even if it was around for the next 10 years, I don't know, I just don't really feel how people could get really invested in supporting the cliques or the Crushers or the four races.
I think it's hard to, because there's nothing to connect to apart from the players in it.
It's like you say, with you being an Arsenal fan, me being an Ipswich fan, Pete with Preston, it's more than it is more than just the players. It's playing for that team, for that badge, and you appreciate the players that are in that side because they're playing for that team at that time. It's a bigger thing to them. Like, you are a fan of these sides because actually at the end of the day, Arsenal win, not Odegaard's won. Like, there's more to it than just the person who's got the shirt on.
Yeah.
But what do I do? Because Preston never win.
Oh, sad.
You slither into mediocrity and mid-table comfortability in the Championship.
God, it's been crap.
Well, yeah, you might get relegated this year.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
At least your tickets will get cheaper.
Might be able to win something coming back up. Maybe.
But that's my point. Of like, I just don't see a way how that feeling can be created in golf, because you can't take away the fact of how individualistic of a sport it is. And the only time team elements have worked is when you put a nation international title over the top of the team name, and you are playing for one thing, and we can connect to that because we are part of Europe in a continent sense, not a political sense, but
always been part of Europe.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, Greg Norman's been replaced with CEO. Wow.
All the way from there to Pete supporting Preston.
Yeah, we went all around the world.
Butter pies.
And then, oh, God, I can't eat them anymore.
No.
Do you reckon Greg will just go to being a...
I think he's going to move to more of a back room. I think
He'll
he's still going to be involved.
Yeah, he'll still be there.
Ambassador role.
Ambassador, yeah.
Who do you want as your ambassador? Greg Norman.
The thing is, though, we say that, and it's easy to be dismissive because of some of the things he said and how it's gone over the last few years. Greg is still a pretty popular kind of figure all over the world just because of how he played golf. He was one of the most attacking, exciting golfers to watch. Number one in the world for a long time. So, it's easy to kind of laugh and joke now, but he still has a lot of experience and probably a lot of good ideas to contribute. Probably shouldn't judge him on maybe how he's been portrayed in the press.